welcome to my Detroit Become Human video. I first played the game with my siblings back in 2019, so a year after it came out, and we all really enjoyed it. I played as Kara, my younger brother played as Connor, and my older brother played as Marcus. I was the only one that didn't get a happy ending, but that's okay. We had fun, regardless. But there is this thing. It happens to me sometimes. I call it being possessed. And I felt it happening with this. I felt it happening with Detroit Become Human, that I was about to go insane. And 3 years ago, I said, no, not right now. I don't want that. I wasn't ready for anything new at that time. At that time, I was very fixated on ensemble stars, and I didn't really want a new obsession. I have since learned that what I was experiencing with not just this media, but several other medias throughout my life was a hyperfixation and a special interest. So that's fun. But sometime in July of 2022, I started reading fan fictions for Detroit Become Human. I'm not really sure what spurred it. The only thing I can think of is around the same time I was making a cosplay, and I tried to watch Mindhunter as background noise, and I got through the first episode and thought, wow, this main character really reminds me of Connor from Detroit Become Human, and I stopped watching Mindhunter and just started reading fanfics, so, that's fun. So, in reading the fanfics, I thought that'd be enough to satiate whatever was happening, because it's usually all it takes is I will remember a media I once enjoyed, and I'll read fanfics, and that will suppress it. That will appease whatever entity is inside me that drives me insane. But it didn't. It made it more intense. So I thought, I didn't get a great ending for Kara. I want to replay the game. So I asked my younger brother if he was willing to go on this adventure with me, and so we replayed it together. We had a blast. Once we got to the end, we thought, well, what's non-deviant Connor like? We should do a run with non-deviant Connor, so we did that, and then we thought, what would a purely violent Marcus look like? Let's do that. And then we thought, what about an evil Kara? And we did that, and we played again and again and again and again, and suddenly, by the end of September, we had 100% the game and gotten all the trophies. Which, apparently, 100%ing the game isn't a trophy. So, we finished that and didn't even get a prize. So if anybody wants to buy me a t-shirt that says that I 100% the game, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Regardless, I felt myself becoming deranged. I thought this would satiate whatever bloodlust was within me, but it didn't. I was being reduced to an atom, and I was about to implode if I didn't do something about this. So I thought, why not make a video? I'm also well aware that I have not uploaded a video since 2019, and all of a sudden just started uploading live streams of myself playing Detroit Become Human every Wednesday. So it appears as if I was obsessed with this since then. That is not the case. This started in 2022. This did not start in 2019. That would be insane. And I understand this can be kind of a shock for me to come back, but I feel like when I started my channel, I wasn't really in a great headspace to be creating content, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But recently I have figured out what it is I want to do media-wise, what I want to produce content-wise, and it's all to thank one person who commented on one of my Riku rambles that just said, underrated channel, and that inspired me so greatly, so thank you. Because I realized that I actually really like media analysis, and media analysis in the way that my deranged brain considers it. As in, thinking way too hard about it, and thinking about things not even the creator cares about. So this video isn't really meant to be anything. I don't even, I'm hesitant to even call it a retrospective because I feel like that requires a little more analysis than I feel I've done. And this is going to be based purely off of content I can find from the game. I did look up behind the scenes stuff. I did read about the production of the game, but I wasn't that obsessed with anything. So this is going to be purely a media analysis of what is available within the game, really. So if nothing else, think of this video as listening to your friend ramble about something they really love whilst worrying about their mental health. This is also going to be a really spoiler-heavy video, so if you've never played Detroit Become Human, or at least watched somebody else play, I don't recommend continuing further. If you do want to play the game, it is available through PlayStation Plus, which would be cheaper than buying the game, or you can watch one of my live streams on my channel. I would recommend when Detroit Become Wednesdays are back, because that would be my favorite ending, which would be close to what is considered the true ending. I do have a survivor's ending as well. You can just pick whichever one you want to watch, but I also recommend if you did watch somebody doing commentary over the game, I'd recommend watching or playing it yourself, or watching a version that doesn't have commentary, because I find people tend to miss things when there is a commentary over top. So without further ado, let's proceed into the video. Hello, welcome to the car segment. Before we start, I have some ground rules I need to establish. I've debated a lot with myself with how I want to structure this video, but I've ultimately decided that I'm not gonna really recap the game. I'll be bringing things up, and they'll be brought up roughly in the order that they appear, but this isn't a retelling of the game or like a retrospective, because I don't know how you would do that. I think it'd be an incredibly difficult task given the like mechanics of the game. Like its main gimmick is like choice and the branching paths that are given to you based on those choices. So I wouldn't even know where to begin doing that. If you do want a more play-by-play type commentary, I do have some live streams on my account where I have like audio chat on. I would recommend one of the ones where I'm playing with my brother, because that will actually be real commentary. When I play by myself, I just end up role-playing as the characters and nothing's learned. I think we just all get dumber. Regardless, I'm mostly talking about my theories and just random things I noticed in the game for this video. I'd also like to give a warning from this point forward of mentions of genocide, SA, abuse, and bigotry. I don't go too in-depth on these topics, not any further than the game does, at least. And I will give warnings and timestamps when I am like talking specifically about those things, but it is pretty unavoidable given the contents and themes of the game. I figured I should at least mention that, so you, as a viewer, can make an informed decision on if you want to proceed further into this video. I am going to start each segment by giving a brief review of the character and their route, and then I'll move on to bullet points. But I won't tell you when each of the bullet points start and end. I trust you to be smart enough to tell. Also, if you notice I'm fidgeting with my clothes a lot, it's because I'm afraid of caterpillars. I'm so afraid of caterpillars. Now, on to the review. Kara is my second favorite of the main characters. I think she's really overlooked, or maybe I'm just in the wrong circles. Somebody please tell me, if I'm in the wrong circle and then invite me to the better one. I think she's such a strong character, and her growth throughout the story is so incredible and interesting. It upsets me how little fan merch she has, or recognition by the fans at all she has. She kind of like gets put on the back burner, like treated like not important, and it's really upsetting when she's the foundation of the game. Like the foundation of like the mechanics and even where the game started, you know? Like, she's important. Kara's route is the best route in the game, and I will stand by that. I will take no arguments. Out of all of the routes, her choices feel like they have the most impact on the outcome. If I recall, she has the most endings out of all the characters, given the fact that she can die in almost all of them. Connor and Marcus can only die after a set point, which obviously is because she's more of an affected party than an affecting party, if that makes sense. And so choices you make as Connor and Marcus, mostly Marcus, have a direct impact on your experience as Kara. But Kara's choices don't have weight for the other characters, except once. Having a character that is just within the throes of it all really helps to center the narrative and make you double think yourself as the other characters. I've seen so many people hesitate on choices for Marcus and Connor because they consider what that choice might do to Kara and Alice. By having an everyman as a player character, it ensures the player doesn't forget about the collective. Her route also has the most replayability, in my opinion. I'm still discovering new things in her route to this day, because even if you make the same big choices, there are smaller choices throughout that make it truly a unique experience to you as an individual player. Whenever I replay the game, there's only one chapter for Kara I dread playing, and that's pretty cool that there's only one. I know my favorite chapter for her in my first playthrough was Battle for Detroit, even though I didn't get a good ending, because it truly felt like everything was coming to a head. Not just for Kara, but the android movement as a whole. Like, your heart is racing just thinking about it, like, finally making it. You feel the weight and the danger, and every choice feels heavy with consequence. I think because she doesn't serve a huge role in the android movement itself, people will downplay her importance in the game, but I think people confuse impact with importance. Yes, Connor and Marcus have a greater impact on the movement and the narrative, but Kara is still important because, well, every life has value. Intrinsically. And the game simply wouldn't work as well without her. You need the perspective of just a person trying to survive and protect what she loves. She keeps the collective of androids that aren't fighting in Jericho from being faceless. Like, you don't forget that they're all people. Now, the bullet points. This is going to sound strange, but I'm starting this off with Zoe. Who's Zoe? Well, she's a named NPC that appears in the opening, Shades of Color, Jericho, and Battle for Detroit. In the opening, she is staring at Kara as she reactivates, and her mother pulls her away, indicating that it is time for them to leave. She then shows up in Shades of Color, in which she runs past Marcus and hugs a female android, possibly an AX-400 like Kara, of which we learn later is named Mandy. Her only speaking appearance is in Jericho. She and her mother are sitting just outside of the Fernandale station. This makes the first sighting of Zoe that can be missed. Zoe inquires to her mother about if it's true that they will be getting rid of Mandy, presumably the AX-400 we saw in the park. Her mother says that they are getting rid of Mandy, the reason being that her grandmother doesn't like having Mandy around, so she leaves her with nothing to do. This could explain why they were in the android zone in the beginning. The mother was likely looking around for places to sell Mandy. Yikes. The last we see of Zoe is a glance of her at the bus terminal in Battle for Detroit, Kara leaving Detroit, where we see a glimpse of her iconic outfit in the crowd. Her family seems to be trying to leave Detroit. Maybe her grandmother's scared Mandy will find her. Why did I bring that up? This is going to be the whole video. There's this thing I've seen so many different places. If I'd only seen it once, it wouldn't bother me, and it probably wouldn't even be a bullet point. But I've seen it so many times, and it's spread around like it's fact, and sharing theories around like it's fact is a pet peeve of mine. Todd's house is an exact copy of Ethan Mars' house in Heavy Rain. Fucking where? They look nothing alike. I understand people saying, oh, their houses are similar, because they are, but it's because they're both lower income houses. I want one person to say this with their full chest while looking at these pictures side by side. It's about the motel too, that it's like a reused asset, but it's not. That's just what motels look like. Have you never been to a motel? Maybe. You sounded pretty privileged. Unless I'm getting the house wrong, unless Ethan Mars has a fourth house I don't know about. Not to mention, this was confirmed to just be a coincidence by game designers because the two houses just share a reference point. It just makes this fact feel, I don't know. Have you guys never seen lower income housing before? Is it just something you're not familiar with? This is just what some people's houses look like. Or is Ethan Mars' house the first house you've ever seen? Maybe that's it. Wait, is that a front door? Wow, this is just like Ethan Mars' house. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what a majority of lower income houses look like in America. It's not a special aesthetic, it's the poverty line. I think Todd's neighbor's house is actually an Easter egg though, as it actually looks like Ethan's house, and it has a basketball hoop. I don't know if you're familiar with the term hammer space. It's a term used mostly for cartoons that refers to the apparent extra-dimensional rift in space used by cartoon characters to store large hammers. You can store other things there too, but it's usually hammers. Well, Kara uses hammer space. Like a lot, actually. In A New Home, she fits not one, not two, but 9 fucking pizza boxes in one garbage bag. Not only that, the bag is in a trash can and doesn't even have a stress point where the box may be, like a box shape in it. She either crushed it or it's not in that bag anymore, it's somewhere else. Then in Fugitives, oh my god, she can fit wire cutters, a candy bar, a stuffed toy, and a gun all at once under that tightly fitting shirt. She can also change her clothes with all of the stuff supposedly right under her clothes, and Alice has no idea. Better yet, we don't hear any of them clatter comedically to the ground. It's so funny watching her remove each item one at a time, by the way, like in any of the, like, stops. I recommend trying this. Like, just try and steal everything in the convenience store. It's like, it literally feels like a cartoon.
You will not believe the amount of things I'm fitting in my pockets right now.
Maybe that's just an AX400 feature, though. Already talked about Zoe. But it feels like there's another child character I could be talking about. Oh, Alice! I love the way Alice is written. She feels so genuine. I think the downfall of a lot of child characters in media is that they will usually feel more like burdens than they need to. Like, obviously, children need support and shouldn't be expected to be full allies. But often the media, especially video games, will make children too helpless to the point where they become the reason the characters are in the situations to begin with. Where in Alice's case, she is surprisingly the voice of reason with Kara. Kara is naive and overly trusting in the beginning, and she is the reason the two end up in most of the situations. That's on purpose, By the way, before I hear anyone try and rip on Kara for being a naive character, that's her character flaw. That's what she overcomes throughout the story. Anyway, Alice just hits this perfect balance of being clearly a child with like childish thoughts and viewpoints, whilst also being aware of the severity of the situation that they are in. This is actually just a compliment for all of Quantic Dream games. They write children that are really believable. I find Alice endearing and sweet. She sort of reminds me a lot of myself as a child. I'll get into that later. Speaking of annoying children, this is a tangent. Do you remember when every gaming YouTuber just like hated children for no reason? Like, just for being children. I remember this vividly. I replayed Heavy Rain and I thought Sean was going to be really annoying because I remembered YouTubers hating him, but he's just a kid. A really traumatized kid. Duck from The Walking Dead was one too that I remember being unbearable. But again, he's just a kid. Fuck, throw Ben in there too. He was just a kid too. 17 is still a kid. But they're just kids. They shouldn't be going through this shit. And like people praise Clementine for being like so mature, but it's like objectively she shouldn't have to be. They're kids. This isn't limited to video games either. I remember everyone hated Carl and Sophia from the Walking Dead TV show too. Despite them, again, just being children in a really messed up situation. There is, this strange phenomenon of expecting children in traumatic situations to make the right choices that oftentimes the adults aren't even making. Of course, Sean isn't going to do anything but mope around and watch cartoons silently. His older brother died. And his dad was in a coma and has blackouts constantly. His parents divorced and he's now living in 2 homes. His life, as he knew it, was literally torn apart in an instant. But you're right, he needs to stop being such a fucking downer. I could talk about this for hours, but it's just frustrating to me that children, not even just fictional ones, for some odd reason aren't seen as human beings with complex emotions and reactions to said emotions. It's weird that children have to earn empathy and respect when they should just come free with your being alive. Anyway, back to Alice. Let's talk about her early concept. She was intended to be mute. She still technically is. She is selectively mute, which so was I growing up. But ASL was gonna be a major gameplay element in the game for her. I think it would have been cool, but not with the way they were going to implement it. You see, what they were planning was for there to be segments in the game where Alice would teach Kara, the player, relevant signs, which is fine. If you don't think about how ridiculous it would be that androids don't know ASL. Do you realize what an incredible tool androids would be for disability access? The game even shows us with Carl. And you're going to imply that they wouldn't come pre-programmed with ASL as one of their languages? They come with like 900 of them. ASL isn't one of them? It's ridiculous. Maybe it wouldn't have been framed this way. I don't know, but I can't think of any other way to implement it where you can teach the player without Kara not knowing either, as she's supposed to represent the player. Anyway, it's just... What? Oh. They changed her race. There doesn't seem to be any real answer as to why this is. Whenever people get the chance to ask, nobody does. Maybe they're scared. I mean, to be fair, it is a weird question. But I'll ask. I have my theories, some more plausible than others. I'll share them. That's what this whole fucking video is. So it seems Alice was intended to be mixed race and human or at least it's implied Luther thought she was human. I'm on the fence if she was ever intended to be human, frankly. Because the only evidence I could find was cut dialogue from Luther calling her human, but that was just a theory, even by the person who found the dialogue. It could very well have been Luther just not knowing she isn't human yet. I mean, several of the other androids don't. In any case, I can't find any credible source that confirms the claim that she was intended to be human at any point during production. So, who knows? In fact, to give credit to the contrary, Brian Deckard, Connor's actor, states in his first playthrough livestream that he's been keeping the secret that he knew Alice was an android since basically the project started. And he was the first one to film any motion capture for the final game. And that would have been after rewrites and the final drafts for the game were complete. So there's no way that that line from Luther means that Alice was human at any point. I'm sorry. It just implies that he didn't know she wasn't. Anyway, her race. Given that the fact that Todd is white in pretty much all of the concept art, that I could find at least, we run into what I might consider the first issue that might make them rethink what they're depicting. Child abuse is already bad. There's already controversy in Europe when the car trailer released because of the depiction of child abuse, but I imagine watching a white father abuse his clearly mixed-race daughter would have been worse, backlash-wise. All child abuse is bad. Like, the point is empathy. It's not promoting child abuse in any way. We to not have media literacy. But if showing it alone caused controversy, I can't imagine if there were added layers to cling to. I think this might have contributed to the race change. I don't like those words together. Add on to that, some of Laurie's, Alice's mother's, concept art depicts her as a black woman, or at least POC in some way. She is white in one of the concepts and in the final model in-game, but I don't know. I guess nobody else sees these concepts as POC, but I do. I don't know, am I seeing things? Anyway, if she was aware of the abuse, or even worse, a participant in it, that's not a good look either. I think that's why Laurie was removed altogether. She just doesn't make sense. The fandom wiki proposes its own theory, which is a weird thing for a wiki to do. It's possible Alice was intended to be Todd's adoptive daughter, given that Laurie could have been white as well. Trying to explain Alice not also being white, but that kind of ignores how difficult it is to actually adopt a child, especially as a lower class household. Like, there is no act Todd or Laurie could put on that would make any of that make sense. And what? They adopt a child just to abuse her? That's cartoonish. Are you Brothers Grimm? I'm confused about what the thought process is here, honestly. Even in the terms of a foster home, they would still have to put up a front that they clearly aren't putting up. I think it's more likely that Todd was intended to be Laurie's boyfriend, but not Alice's father. Like, he was just casually freeloading off of this woman and casually abusing her child, and possibly her. I mean, Todd's house in the concept work and asset names is referenced as Laurie's house, confirming that it's not his house. Adding to that, I actually think Todd was never intended to be Alice's biological father. I don't think there's a version of the script where Alice and Todd are actually related. In the case of Alice being an android with Laurie and Todd present, though, the explanation for them purchasing Alice could be a really messed up version of, like, two people who are terrible together have a baby, think it will fix anything. Anyway, I think some of these points may have something to do with the race change for Alice. I think it's possible, too, that the trouble of fitting Laurie into the narrative at all was a contributing factor. And was Probably the main reason for any major changes in Kara's route. That's why she was cut. I mean, Lori is the only sticky cog in this machine. We already know Kara's route is one of the closest to the original concepts of all the characters except for Lori being present. So it's likely that her being removed to make the narrative work better had like a ripple effect onto other things. Like how Kermit being born somehow caused 9/11. Other, more plausible theory. Emma was a different race and concept too. She was Asian. But in the final game, Emma's the little girl from the hostage. Okay. But in the final game, her race was changed. Because she was also played by Audrey Bustani, Alice's actress. So the more likely answer to the change is actor availability and budget. So this whole bullet point may have just been a net neutral in information. Sorry. I did check Audrey's page on the wiki for some stuff here, and oh my god, the comments are so funny. Like, weird, but really funny. I'll read you some. She is French. That's weird. Can you add where she lives so we can send her letters? Of which Moo X Mochi appropriately replied, "That's kind of creepy. I think you mean P.O. Box." I think actually instead of adding Audrey's actual address to the wiki, we should add the previous commenter to a watch list of some kind. And finally, my favorite. I have a friend who is actually named Audrey. Sorry if this offends you. Why would that offend anybody? Okay, so I did mention that Alice could have been intended to be human, and then debunked it. Oh, she's an android, by the way. If you didn't know. Apparently some people don't. Anyway, a lot of people will debate that this change, if it was a change at all, was a bad thing. Their reason is that all the main characters have a relationship with a human that is important to them and shapes them, and they took Kara's away by making Alice an android. As if Rose isn't right there. Not only is that Rose erasure, it's an ignoring of the reasons narratively Alice is an android. The themes of Detroit Become Human are objectively very clear, and yet, as if in spite, people miss the fucking point all the time. During one of my live streams, a couple of people joined and kept reminding me Alice was an android whenever, I did kind things for her. Like, in the way of, no, don't do that. She doesn't need this thing. She's not human. Which rubbed me the wrong way. 'Cause, I don't know. I guess she doesn't need the stuffed animal and a warm place to sleep. But she still deserves that. She's still a little girl. But despite it upsetting me, it also didn't surprise me. Alice is clearly a representation of the children of marginalized and oppressed people. Innocence and childhood being ignored because they aren't like us. There is a reason Alice cannot die at the hands of the military or police until Crossroads, when her being an android is revealed. She is now, in the narrative, other. You were with her. You know her. She is a child. She's just a little girl. You watched her cry about her father's abuse. She asked you for a bedtime story and a kiss goodnight. You watched her laugh and smile on the carousel. You watched her shiver from the cold, acting brave despite being sick. She's just a little girl, and yet you watch as armed men claiming to be protecting people aim their guns and shoot her. To them, she is nothing but an android, a deviant android. This is supposed to be upsetting. You're supposed to be appalled because you know she and all the other androids are human, innocent. But the overwhelming amount of people I've seen say they stopped caring about Alice after learning she was an android is baffling to me. They stopped caring about the innocent little girl the second they realized she wasn't like them. I know someone personally who said they felt lied to by Alice. This fan behavior towards Alice reminds me of Rue from the Hunger Games. If you aren't aware, and I promise this tangent won't be long, Rue in the Hunger Games was described as dark-skinned in the books. In fact, darker than the actress casted to play her in the movie. Despite this, when the casting for the movie was released, so many people had an issue with them turning Rue black, even though she was black the entire time. And what it really came down to was these people heard that this little girl was innocent, sweet, playful, and black, and completely ignored the last bit, because in their brain, that contradicted her innocence. Ironically, a mentality the Hunger Games was critiquing. Yahara Zaid has a video called The Day Rue Became Black. I'll link it below. I highly recommend watching it. It's a really good video. She goes into the nuances of the topic, and it's a very well-made video. The Alice and Rue situations are like kind of similar to me, and my assumption, with Alice originally being mixed, is that Alice was intended to tackle the adultification and revoking of innocence experienced by minority children, especially black children. Alice was very clearly supposed to display this problem of the children of minorities being perceived as less innocent. Alice was clearly supposed to represent and display this problem of children of minorities being perceived as less innocent than white children, and that is a huge problem that we need to be aware of and make efforts to stop. And then many players turned around and did exactly that, claiming that Alice is no longer good because they made her an android. She didn't become an android. She was one the whole time. That's what the foreshadowing was. And if the realization that she was an android causes you to question if she is actually innocent and deserving of peace, freedom, and happiness, that's not a flaw in the story. It's a flaw in your own thinking, and you should examine that. Okay, sorry about the camera change. My camera sucks. The battery's not working. I can't get it to charge. So I'm recording with my phone now. Kinda wish I just started with that, but whatever. Thought it would work. Anyway, Todd is a drug dealer. That's not a theory. That's just fact. It's obvious. Obviously he does drugs, but it's also implied that he sells them too, because of the phone call he takes during a new home. And if he's killed, a friend of his finds his body after coming to say hello. Yeah, sure. Although, I guess he could also be smuggling something else, because it's not super clear what he's talking about on the phone call, but it's probably drugs. I headcanon that he's talking to Leo, which doesn't make any sense, since Todd's body can be found no matter what happens to Leo in Broken, even if he goes to the hospital, which would make it really hard to pop in and say hello. Todd also used to own a taxi service, if you even care. Back to the drug thing, because this infuriates me. When Kara's rewashing the clothes, she reaches for the detergent and finds one of Todd's like red eye stashes, and he gets really upset with her, and like yells at her for messing around with his stuff. But like, dude, why did you hide it there? Of course the housekeeping android is going to find your red eye stash in the fucking laundry detergent. It's one of the steps and the things you told her to do. This is not a genuine nitpick, because Todd is not a rational person, especially because of his drug use and mixing his prescribed medications with said drugs and alcohol, but it still boils my blood. I hate this man.
You smell like piss.
So we all already hate Todd here, right? Really? Not even the child abuse? You're okay with that?
Okay, anyway, there is so much mayonnaise in Todd's fridge. Like, there isn't a large number, but it is when you're talking about mayonnaise. They could have put different stuff in there. Does he put it in his hair? Why is that one green? Okay, I mentioned foreshadowing earlier. Alice has a lot of foreshadowing for her being an android. She never eats. She doesn't have visible breath in the cold. While other human characters do. You can hear cyber sounds when she's sick in Jericho. And she removes her skin in Kara Captured. I love foreshadowing. As somebody who enjoys media by consuming it repeatedly over and over and over again, like a broken record, over analyzing every detail until it's a finely ground mush, foreshadowing is really good for me. The wiki and TV tropes have very cute lists of different foreshadowings in the game. Not all of them, though. I just pointed out the cyber sounds in Jericho, but a Tumblr user, Kayla1507, points out the drawings in Alice's room and on her door being exact copies, and that it being possible one of them was from Todd's real daughter, and Alice was copying it. Because only an android could copy that crisply. The way Zadko talks about Alice and only letting them in once he sees Alice is also foreshadowing, but I feel like a piece that is often missed for Alice is her little plush fox named Timothy. Not only is his design having the little button in the place of the triangle on the android uniforms foreshadowing, but him being a fox is symbolism. All of the characters actually have an animal that represents them in various chapters. I'll bring them up as we go, but for Alice, it's a fox. Foxes are usually seen as negative symbols, representing abomination, lies, and deception. To some degree, this could fit Alice. This is if you view her not sharing the information that she's an android as a lie or deception, although it is more likely a reference to Kara lying to herself about Alice being an android, as Alice isn't really lying, as that would require her claiming to be human, which she never does. Abomination could be how she is viewed by the world or society. A lot of people are disgusted at the concept of android children, given that they are marketed to replace human children. A mockery of flesh, if you will. The positive representations of foxes are adaptability, quick wit, and intelligence, which is very fitting for Alice, given that she is the one that's always the first to know when the party is in a dangerous situation. She never overreacts like Luther, but she doesn't underreact like Kara, because of course, foxes are always aware of their surroundings. This is a fact about foxes. This could also be a reference to the hypervigilance a child of abuse will often experience and develop to cope. Interestingly, being chased by a fox in a dream represents the avoidance of conflict or problem, namely, a person who will cause said conflict. Todd is actually a term used to refer to male foxes. So they technically are chased by a fox. Alice loses the fox toy in Stormy Night as it is left behind in the house when she and Kara avoid or confront Todd. It can be replaced in Fugitives from claiming it at the 24/7 corner store. It is then lost again and on the run as it is left behind when the two are either pursued by police or chased by Connor. I think it's possible too that the fox represents Alice and Todd. Like their relationship. It's destructive. It does neither of them any good because it allows Todd to spiral and because it hurts Alice, but she can't escape. The biblical symbolism of a fox is abomination. I'm using biblical symbolism as well because the game has a lot of Christian and Catholic themes. Anyway, abomination could possibly represent the reason Todd even has Alice. His intentions of having her wasn't noble. It was fueled by prideful sin. not wanting to be wrong and trying to prove he wasn't the problem instead of accepting it, facing it, and becoming better. What Todd had done to Alice, Kara, his wife, and child, the family he destroyed and mangled not once, but twice out of pride and ego, still stubbornly insisting someone else is at fault while using Alice as a scapegoat and treating her as the abomination where his actions and choices are the most shameful of all. Oh, more symbolism? So soon? Both Kara and Marcus have giraffes in their chapters that take place just before their deviancy. Marcus is obvious. I'd be shocked if you missed it. It's a large, what seems to be taxidermied giraffe in Carl's living room in the picture. And Kara's is a small wooden one on the kitchen windowsill in A New Home. It's okay if you missed it. You get a good shot of it when washing the dishes or collecting the laundry, which are both optional tasks. I did look for one for Connor in his respective chapter, Last Chance Connor, but I didn't find anything. Maybe you guys could take a look. Maybe I just missed it. I don't feel like it would be hidden though. None of the other ones were, so it's unlikely he has one. I mean, it makes sense. Connor's deviancy isn't exactly sudden. Now, giraffes generally represent new perspectives because they are tall. That is a fact about giraffes. They also represent calmness in the face of adversity, which I didn't know about giraffes, but I guess it's a trait. One I especially like is that they represent the natural order of things. They show up in the chapters that depict Kara and Marcus's everyday lives, their status quo or natural order. This could explain the absence of a giraffe for Connor, as there isn't really an everyday life for Connor. Another meaning I find very interesting is that it's believed encountering a giraffe means that you will soon come to an epiphany. Of course, an epiphany, in this case, would be referring to their soon-to-be-found deviancy in Stormy Night and Broken. Giraffes can also represent someone who acts for the benefit of their community, which I think is very fitting for Marcus. Fun fact, I noticed this symbolism pretty early on in my first playthroughs, and shortly after I started playing again, me and my older brother took a trip to New Orleans, because another interest of mine is old cemeteries. Anyway, on our way there, we stopped at a gas station, and across the road was like this fake giraffe, huge. It was like made out of concrete or something. I joked to my brother that I was going to have an epiphany on the trip. Well, we got mugged while we were in New Orleans. So the epiphany is I should carry pepper spray. Speaking of deviancy, I'm going to talk about Alice's deviancy. So it's kind of debated by the fandom whether or not Alice is deviant. The answer is yes, but it's still debated regardless. But I'm adding another layer. Not only is she deviant, she's been deviant way before Todd even got Kara. I'm really big on prove it, so I do have evidence. First, the drawings Kara finds in the treasure box. There are 4 drawings in this box, the first of which depicts Alice with a bright red mark on her right temple. Here. The assumption on a first playthrough would be that it's blood, but with the knowledge that Alice is an android, it can't be blood because it's red. Her blood would be blue. This is confirmed in any chapter she is shot. So add that to the wiki. She is also aware that she's an android, so she wouldn't depict herself with red blood. So I believe this is Alice depicting her own awakening into deviancy, the blood on her temple actually being her LED. The second drawing depicts Alice with Todd, both drawn with frowns. They are either holding hands or he's dragging her by the arm. It's likely he's dragging her by the arm. That makes more sense. I don't know why they'd be holding hands. I'm just so unhappy. I hate this. The third drawing shows Todd either yelling at or hitting Kara. She likely stepped in to stop the abuse. I don't think Kara was deviant, though, because Todd isn't surprised by her trying to mediate, so it seems she did that before, too. He only starts to suspect something is wrong with Kara when she doesn't take his orders. Alice is in the picture as well, and she seems to be trying to stop whatever is happening. The final drawing is of Alice crying over a dismembered Kara. Now, clearly, Alice depicted the real reason Kara needed to be repaired, and I initially thought it was what caused Alice to become deviant. But I don't think that anymore. If not for one reason. The drawing of Alice with the LED is the first drawing that we see, and all the other drawings were in order. I think Alice was triggered to become deviant because of the continued and prolonged abuse by Todd, not him destroying Kara. That's not saying that wasn't upsetting, it's just not what triggered it. Todd seems to be angry at Alice, not Kara, and only turns on Kara when she steps in to protect Alice. That's proven during the game. Alice is Todd's scapegoat, so it's not unlikely that she's actually been deviant for longer than we realize. Second, her LED. I'm still on that. So I mentioned the drawing of Alice with the LED, but as you can tell, she doesn't have one. Now, child androids have removable LEDs, but I don't think Todd removed it. And if he did, when he first got her, why would she depict herself with one? I think she removed it herself, maybe in hopes Todd would stop abusing her if she was more human. Third, Alice will straight up just not listen to Todd. She shouldn't do that. I think that's why Todd even got Kara. He had lost control of Alice a long time ago, and the fourth and final evidence I have, Alice named Kara. Naming someone or something is not something an android who isn't deviant would be able to do. They are literally programmed to not have an opinion or choice. We do not know when Todd first got Kara, but it's possible Alice has been deviant for at least a month before we meet her in-game, but I suspect it's been longer. On that note, I think Todd forgot Alice was an android. And or he didn't get her legally. When I played with my mom, she asked in Waiting for Hank why Kara's report didn't mention Alice. At this point, my mom didn't know she was an android, and it did make me realize that androids would be registered to their owners. Kara was. That's how she becomes the suspect in Todd's murder. And despite being a gift and a prototype, Marcus is also registered to Carl, even if his information is sealed to an extent. But the report makes no mention of Alice at all, which is strange because she would be missing too. And if Todd is dead, it can't be him omitting information unless Todd never registered her because he didn't obtain her legally. He did know she was an android when he first got her, and he did register Kara. I have a personal headcanon that you need to have a registered android in order to buy and purchase blue blood, given that it is one of the main ingredients in an easy-to-produce drug that is rampant in the city. That just makes sense. And given that Todd is a dealer, he would need access to blue blood, even if it's not making the drugs himself. Maybe it's like an exchange thing. I assume that's why he registered Kara, so he could purchase the blue blood to make red eyes or give it to his suppliers so they could. He could have registered Alice too, and likely been given more blue blood, but if she was acquired illegally, because he would not have been able to afford her otherwise, she would already be either registered or reported missing. So it's just a general rule of thumb. You don't want to like register a stolen item online. So that explains her not being in the report if Todd is dead, because she's not registered to him. But if he believes Alice is his real daughter, if he started slipping into this delusion, it doesn't make sense that she's not in the report if he isn't dead. Why wouldn't you report your daughter missing? unless he believes he kidnapped Alice. Given that his wife complained about his drug use even before he had Alice and Kara, he would not have gotten custody of his daughter. Not even visitation. So maybe when the delusion started, he began to believe he kidnapped Alice from her mother. He isn't so far into the delusion that he doesn't know Lori left him and the reasons why, so he would be fully aware of the court order when it came to his real daughter and seeing her. Having kidnapped her would be the only thing that would make sense to him as to why she was there. So when he filed the police report about Kara, once again, wanting to save his own ass, he didn't mention Alice or that Kara took her because he didn't want to get in trouble for possibly kidnapping his daughter. He didn't, we know that, but he thinks he did, and it still makes him an asshole. Which, I guess me and Todd have something in common of having a delusion. On my first playthrough, I thought Alice was some kind of strange shared hallucination between Todd and Kara. It wasn't until Zlatko that I realized that wasn't true. But listen, I robbed the store at gunpoint. I went to the motel. I evaded the police. At no point did anybody acknowledge the little girl in the room until Zlatko. I mean, fuck, I just mentioned that the police report doesn't mention her at all, and I killed Todd. He couldn't lie about her. So I played those first few chapters thinking, holy shit, the reveal is gonna be that this kid's not real. Thankfully it wasn't, but could you imagine?
But whatever I do, when someone comes along, they just fuck it all up!
Bonked her right on the head. You gotta appreciate the consistency of them having 3 chairs in a new home and 2 in Stormy Night. And then 1. Todd shatters that thing. The chair was like, hello, I'm Princess Jane. I have a trick for you. I hope you enjoy it. Did anybody get that reference? Or do I just sound crazy? Speaking of that, you can like really fuck with Todd. Watch the TV too long. Stand in front of the TV. Don't serve dinner. Don't turn on the lights. Shoot him with a gun. Kara, you little prankster. Okay, so we're in a version of this universe where Alice is human. Right? No. Just don't think about it. This mother sucks. Because if this was still the plan, that she left Todd because of the drugs and stuff, she left her daughter there. And there's no indication that she even cared that she went missing. This is what I mean by the mother being cut, because I cannot make sense of what she would have been doing at all. I feel the only way this would work is if she was dead, and I hate wishing women dead. You know what? Also, this guy has been utterly cucked by androids. It's so funny. He talks a lot about androids taking his jobs. He worked a lot of jobs, and the irony of having to, he doesn't have to buy an android to take care of his house. He could take care of his own damn house. It's too much for the lazy fucking bastard. Oh, having to buy an android to take care of his house. He also goes on this rant about how wonderful androids are, and then starts talking about his wife. And I was half expecting his wife to have left him for an android. Like, it would have really driven his point home. I would have understood. Out of all of the words to end that sentence with, accountant wasn't what I expected. Accountant really came out of left field, I'll be honest. Also, he didn't even lose his taxi driver job to an android. The cabs drive themselves. They didn't even need the dexterity of human-like hands. It's worse. This guy's life sucks. Can't have shit in Detroit. Can't even have a housekeeping android that doesn't kill you and kidnap your daughter. Speaking of android daughters, you ever notice how this little girl only eats spaghetti? If she's ever served a meal, it is spaghetti. You know, I guess it's only twice. But that's a lot for 4 days and 2 different locations, served by 2 different people. That's stupid. What the fuck does that mean? Do you know the line Ralph has where he's like, little girl? She's not a little girl. Yeah, the wiki states that this is a sign that androids can identify each other on sight and that Ralph knows that Alice is an android, but then contradicted when Ralph tells her to eat, implying he believes she is human. But I actually think this is because he thinks she's human. And to him, all humans are the same. So her being a little girl is redundant because all humans want to hurt him. Not to mention she is deviant as well. Connor states in the Eden Club that deviants aren't easy to identify, and in a cut, more like broken, as it is fully intended to work, but it just doesn't, dialogue with Amanda about Rupert, if Connor finds the fake ID, he muses about it being the first time they've seen a deviant blending in with humans, and that it is possible more are doing so. Connor was literally made to hunt deviants, and he talks about the chance that he is walking past androids on the street and not knowing it. So I don't think the other androids can tell either. Also, most damning, Kara removes her skin to reveal to Ralph that she is also an android. If he knew she was an android on sight, she wouldn't have had to do that, and it wouldn't have calmed him. Also, if you meet him in the camps, he seems confused why Alice would even be there when asked if he's seen her. So I don't think Ralph knows Alice is an android. The Jerrys probably do, though. It's likely they've seen her model before. Speaking of Ralph, you probably noticed he only speaks in the third person. But if you talk to him in the squad house kitchen asking what RA9 means, he replies, I don't know. That wasn't in third person. The wiki states that it may have been a mistake on the actor's part, but that's mean. He's a good actor. And also, given that the way the game was filmed, it was likely reading word for word from the script. Very little area for change or mistakes like that. So I think it was intentional, like a brief moment of clarity for him. Oh, the bus driver guy. What do you call his job? Bus collector? Anyway, his name is Isaac Fallon. He was motion captured by Brian Deckard, Connor's actor. Which it might be because I'm possibly autistic, but I could tell. It's the way he moves his arms. I don't know what to tell you. Isaac was also born March 10th, 1999, which is not only my birth year, but he's also a Pisces, like me. Add him to the Pisces list. I do not know why I keep this list. I think it's the part of my brain that likes trivia and that I'm similar to the people that I like and respect. Okay, I'm gonna bum us out for a second. Sorry. And I know I'm talking a lot about Alice, but I love her, okay? My top 3 favorite characters are Connor, Alice, and North. Her speech always makes me so sad.
Why didn't he ever love me? Why was he always so upset with me? All I wanted was a life like other girls. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I wasn't good enough. That's why he was always so angry. I just wanted us to be a family. I just wanted him to love me. Why couldn't we just be happy?
I already mentioned that Alice reminds me of myself as a child. So I really relate to Alice and what she's going through. I feel like now would be a really good time to get into Alice's relationship with Todd. I said earlier that she's clearly Todd's scapegoat. If you don't know what a scapegoat is, it's essentially someone or something that gets blamed for things they had nothing to do with. Alice gets the brunt of Todd's aggression. Alice's moments with Todd are honestly really hard for me to watch. Todd's words have clearly affected Alice, her saying that maybe she did something wrong, showing that, to some degree, she was starting to believe that maybe she did deserve this. And when you've been subjected to that kind of abuse for so long, you do start to think you deserve it. Todd isn't a good father. He wasn't good to his ex-wife or his daughter, and he wasn't good to Alice or Kara. He was a selfish, apathetic man who prioritized his ego above all else. Which makes it even more interesting that he can be redeemed. If you don't kill Todd in Stormy Night, he appears at the bus depot in Battle for Detroit, Kara leaving Detroit. He tries to stop Kara and Alice and calls the guards over. You get a couple of options here, one of which being compassion.
When your wife walked out, she took your daughter away. You couldn't live without her. So you bought yourself an android. A substitute little girl. You thought you could love her. That she would make you forget. But nothing could replace your child.
I just wanted to prove to myself that I was a good father. She was wrong. But I fucked it all up all over again. She was right in the end. I didn't deserve them. But I missed my little girl. You don't know how much I miss my little girl.
Is there a problem, sir?
No. I made a mistake. Sorry. Good luck.
Kara pleads to Todd to his humanity by proving her own. And in response, he lets them go. He even wishes them luck. And in a moment that never fails to make me cry, Alice hugs him.
Please don't move.
I relate a lot to Alice, specifically when I was a child. The child version of yourself never leaves you. I didn't have a physically abusive father, but he was abusive in his own ways. I felt incredibly alone back then. I had my family, but I didn't see myself or my experience in the media or my friends. And my father made sure to enforce that isolation by making me and my family believe we were the crazy ones. That there was something wrong with us. Normal people wouldn't be upset like this. It may sound strange, but this relationship being in the game, the way people react to it and how hard they try to protect Alice, fight to protect Alice, it healed a little bit of that part of me. That little girl. If not only because it was nice to know I wasn't alone, and that if people outside of my family had known what we were going through, they would have thought it was wrong too. I just wish I could get closure, like Alice gets. It would make healing easier. I want to talk about the car in Fugitives. So, if you stay in the parking lot in Fugitives, car breaks the window and opens the back door from the inside. Fine. The doors aren't locked. Okay. Maybe it was to prevent the alarm from going off. The dome light doesn't turn on from her opening the door. So the batteries are dead. Or gone. This car's clearly been scavenged for parts. And you know what blunt, aggressive action would make a car alarm go off? Breaking the window. I was so desperate to give Kara some benefit of the doubt here, so I thought maybe it was the child safety lock. But then that quickly fell apart when I remembered that child safety locks make the door not open from the inside. If it didn't, that would defeat the purpose. So there was no reason for Kara to break the window. I don't understand why there wasn't even an attempt to open it first. Oh, but she wouldn't know the battery was dead. She was just being cautious. She could tell the dishwasher was broken and what part was missing just by scanning it. My point is, Kara broke a fucking huge hole in the car, letting in a draft in what could have been perfectly sufficient shelter. Would it have been perfect? No, I'm not saying that. I slept in a car in -10 degrees. It's terrible. I'm arguing that it didn't have to be that bad. Thanks, Kara. I guess her and Connor have that in common. They just panic when they see windows. So, there is a life-size statue of Kara. 2, actually. Where are they now? Are they still there? If not, who has them? And whoever it is, it's weird if it's not her actress. Like, it's her likeness. She didn't just voice this character, she is every part of the character. I would be deeply uncomfortable with the idea of someone owning a life-size statue of me. Anyway, I'm gonna talk about Ralph now. He's the sweetest man I know. Also, a surprising amount of people want to have sex with him. What's that? Oh, it's the symbolism alarm. We heard it earlier, remember? That's right. I'm bringing up an animal that shows up next to a character, therefore, I think it represents them in some way. There's a deer head in the sink. It reminds me of my grandpa. It also reminds me of Ralph. They're identical. They look just like each other. Twins. Deer have a lot of symbolism. Innocence, grace, blessings. They can even represent the budding of new love. Ooh, what does that mean for Kara? Kidding. But the symbolism I think is relevant to Ralph is that of dreams. Deer in dreams are usually a positive sign. They can represent hope, a willingness to trust everything will be okay, especially the trust and faith in a higher power. In this sense, I think the deer represents RA9 and Ralph and many other androids' relationship with RA9. RA9 is hope that things will be better someday. They can also represent an increased vigilance or alertness, being aware of your surroundings and its dangers and being quick to act if anything were to happen. I think this symbolism fits Ralph really well, in that he is quick to emotional outbursts and can be violent, but is revealed to just be afraid. Like deer. That is a fact about deer. Something to note is the deer in the sink has antlers, which would actually make it a buck. Bucks more often represent hunting, the thrill of the chase, thankfulness for what is provided. It depends on what state the buck is in. In this case, it is mounted. Clearly it has been hunted. A hunted buck can represent feeling trapped or cornered. There's some symbolism for Connor's role in the chapter. And funny enough, if caught, they all run to the back door, which is through the kitchen, where the deer head is located. Oh look! An herb. Anyway, I don't know what part of my brain this is, but like, I could do that. Realistically, no, I couldn't run across a highway and survive. I'd likely get hit in the first lane. But I don't know. My brain says I could, and I believe her. Also, what the fuck? So Connor gets hit and we don't see his body afterwards, but we see Kara literally launched into the air. Like, I'd be less traumatized by a quick pan over to Connor laying fucking dead in the road than Kara being fucking bent in half. Is this misogyny?
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I really have to interject because I'm looking for the clips for this part, and this is like the funniest chapter in the entire game. Like, okay, Connor's is kind of a little more brutal than I remembered, but like, Connor's is diabolical. They launch this woman in the air. And then the crunch. Why did they do her so dirty? What the hell? Speaking of Connor and the rest of the police, they don't know Kara has Alice with her, unless Kara and Alice flee across the highway, or Connor sees that there are 3 chairs set up to eat in the squad house. Also, Connor thinks that's food. Okay. Anyway, he doesn't know the third party is a child in that case, but he still sees that there are 3 chairs. If neither of these things happen, then nobody knows that Kara is fleeing with another person, let alone a child. Nobody knows Alice exists. I thought she wasn't real. Oh, you have something on your face. I'll get it for you. There, I got it. Much better. Ow! What were we talking about? Oh, Zlatko. So, my little brother pointed this out during a playthrough, and it was kind of genuinely surprising that I didn't notice the first time I played. But Zlatko is covered in blue blood. His shirt and his hands have blue blood all over them. Yeah. I think it's really fun foreshadowing. Speaking of things I didn't know at first, and wish I did, the polar bear can escape the house. If he isn't shot by Zlatko and is freed from the cage, he walks out of the house at the end, just behind Luther. This is my favorite scene. It makes me so happy.
I was so scared of losing
But oh my god, there's a fucking wild polar bear loose on the outskirts of Detroit. She's just a baby, if anybody cares. You're making this very difficult. Yes, you are. Can you hold this? Can you hold him? Yeah. That being said, I do want to talk about, can an animal android go deviant? And if so, what would that mean? Like, clearly, they would program the animal androids to be more docile versions of the animals, because, like, it'd be so cool to hug a gorilla. Oh, and I guess to keep people safe, but would deviancy in an animal android just be that they, I don't know, act like the animal? Like with the instincts we know them with? You know, like they would hunt for food and be like dangerous to be around, like, the, you know? Or would they stand bipedal and speak human language? Could they get a job? Is this the sequel? Detroit Zoo become human? That is a funny joke. Oh, so soon. More symbolism again. So in Zlatko's foyer, there's a mounted, like, ostrich. It's taxidermy for sure. Side note, respect the craft, taxidermy scares me. Anyway, I don't know why, but this is really difficult to get any information on. I guess people don't usually dream about ostriches. What I did find is incredibly all over the place. Some sources say they're good omens, others say they're bad. It was really confusing sifting through this information. A lot of them specify the ostrich is burying its head in the ground, which, like, fair, that is something that they do, but isn't what this one is doing. Some say it's a sign of luck. I don't know if I'd go with that one. I was starting to think that it didn't have significant meaning. They did forget to make the lock outside the door a keyhole instead of a latch, so it's possible they just overlooked it. But in all the concept art, it's a bear. Why would they change it to an ostrich? They already had a bear model. They just have to change the texture. This was more effort. It can't be purposeless. I then found some that said they occasionally represent the need to protect your energy and defend yourself, especially against negative or harmful energies, needing to learn that there are energies out there that want to hurt you, but not to let them turn you cold and callous. That approaching these energies with love often works better than meeting them at their level. Unless, of course, they have a shotgun. And do what you gotta do. I do think that meaning is very fitting to the lesson Kara learns in this chapter. At this point, she is still very naive and trusting, and she kind of needs to learn some caution. Sorry, girl. While I was trying to find some symbolism for ostriches, though, I searched biblical ostrich. Oh, and a dream where you were running from an ostrich means that you made the wrong person angry. Just in case that's a dream you've been having. Want to talk about something stinky? Pee, ew. Yeah, Zlatko doesn't shower. There's a guy in his only bathtub. And that's his only bathroom. So unless he stands over this guy while he cleans himself, he doesn't shower. I don't know which is worse. Okay, so I saw this point once, but it hit me like a ton of fucking bricks being carried by a truck. Essay mention, nothing detailed, but it is mentioned. Timestamp for you. But like I said, no details, it's just mentions of. Okay. There was this person, I don't remember their name. I don't make an effort to remember the names of people who say things that annoy me. I tend to just try and ignore it. Claiming that the whole chapter with Zlatko was an allegory for sexual assault. I have 2 issues with that. 1, no, it's not. It's an allegory, you're right, but the allegory is human trafficking, which isn't always sexual, and how marginalized people are more likely to be victims of this crime because they are often, because of broken systems, seen as more vulnerable targets. It's also an allegory to the horrifying abuse and torture enslaved and dehumanized people experienced because they were viewed as less than human. 2, a woman can be victimized without it being sexual. I would have understood this take and possibly agreed if Zlatko showed any sexual advancement on Kara, but he doesn't. There isn't anything in his interactions with her that are even remotely sexual. Manipulative? Yes. Sexual? No. Manipulation isn't only a precursor to sexual assault. It could just be a precursor to any assault. People can manipulate other people without SA being the form of harm intended as the end goal. Compare this to a DLC chapter in Heavy Rain with Madison, where she is also attacked by a serial killer. These chapters are incredibly different. The chapter in Heavy Rain was undeniably an allegory for sexual assault down to the way he attacked her and the way he talked to her. It's not the same as Zlatko. Zlatko is a terrible person, and I'm not saying that sexual assault isn't a way women are victimized. But I can't help but feel it's a little strange that this person saw a woman be victimized by a man and immediately thought the allegory was in some way sexual, despite there being no signs of it. It sort of sends the message that SA is the only form of abuse women can be victims of, or it's the only one that matters, and that because Kara is a woman, the things that happen to her are inherently sexual. I did see a lot of people replying to this saying the same things I am, but the original post has just been eating away at my brain. Sorry. Timestamp. Let's talk about something nicer. Luther. Similar to Alice, I think he is often overlooked. I think people forget that he is like Kara in that he is discovering what it means to be alive. He has a pessimism to Kara's optimism, where they both go to extremes to a fault. Luther learns from Kara how to have hope, and Kara learns from Luther how to anticipate if things go wrong. In that regard, Alice would be the realist. I love Luther. I find him to be such an interesting character in that it's fun to see him start as a pessimist and then learn to have hope. Try to learn to be more optimistic. Because it's too often we see optimism and blind faith be seen as a critical character flaw. It can be, but blind pessimism isn't viewed the same. There's no character type that irritates me more than the unrelenting pessimist. Speaking of optimistic and pessimistic relationship, I feel the importance of Kara and Luther's relationship is severely downplayed by the fandom. Luther starts off as, like I mentioned, someone who doesn't know what it means to be alive, and through Alice and Kara, his relationship with both of them, learns what that means to him, and then bestows that same lesson onto Kara, forgetting who you are to become what someone needs you to be. Maybe that's what it means to be alive. But I think this downplay comes from the erasure of platonic male and female relationships in media. You know what? Just the erasure of platonic relationships in general, because there seems to be this mindset that they're not as important as romantic relationships, that you cannot be changed by platonic love in the same way that you were changed by romantic love, which just isn't true. Kara and Luther love each other, in whatever way that may be, and it changes both of them for the better. I think their relationship and how they grow together is beautiful. I just wish people would acknowledge it more. Okay, I have to talk about the Luther problem. As much as I love Luther, there is a conversation to be had. If you don't know, the Luther problem refers to the potential stereotypes that Luther fulfills as the protector of the white women. I want to preface this. I'm not going to make any claims on this being unfounded or untrue criticism, or even founded and true criticism. I don't feel I am the one that should be making that claim. What I am going to do is talk about false and positive stereotype labeling and its place within performative activism. I've seen this claim for Luther a couple times, and yes, I see it. The fact Luther mechanically serves as a buffer for the player to ensure Kara and Alice's survival, where his survival isn't treated as important, is a problem. But I noticed that when it comes to call-outs like this, not just for Luther, but other media as well, they often end at the call-out and don't delve any deeper into why it is a problem. And call-outs like that usually halt any further discussion into the topic, which is the opposite of helpful and productive. Calling out these things isn't helpful if you don't also educate people on why the stereotypes and portrayal is harmful in the first place. Because how can you learn without information? There's this weird thing of asking why is seen as a sin in of itself. Admitting that you don't know why there's a problem means that you're a part of the problem, which isn't true. Asking why is one of the most powerful questions you can ask. Now, if you don't know why the white female protector trope or the silent but gentle black protector trope is harmful, then it's probably because you aren't aware of where it stemmed from. In early Hollywood, well after the abolishment of slavery, period pieces were very popular. They are now too, just different decades. I don't know if you noticed, most TV shows and movies take place in either the 60s or 80s anymore. Those are decade pieces. Those are period pieces. We've been doing it for a long time, is my point. But a time period that usually was depicted in old Hollywood was before the Civil War. Even family-friendly movies took place in this decade. And that's where the problem starts. Black slaves were often depicted in these movies with two very common stereotypes. You are likely familiar with them. The mommy, or mammy, the mammy, and Uncle Remus archetypes, or caricatures. These characters usually played guiding and protective roles for, you guessed it, white characters, usually women and children, because men don't need help. That was like another big problem. There's so many problems. These depictions were protested heavily by the Black community, even back when these films were being released. These tropes and stereotypes were harmful from the moment of their conception. Nobody became too sensitive. They were always bad. But the protest and outcry from the affected communities didn't stop these movies from making money. So Hollywood kept making them, perpetuating the stereotypes. Until, at some point, people, consumers, started to listen to the outcry, to the affected people. Then it did start to affect the money. But instead of removing these stereotypes, they evolved. The mammy became the sassy Black best friend, and the Uncle Remus became the silent but gentle Black protector. And just like the harmful tropes before, these two were protested and criticized. But not until more recently has there actually been change to it, if not very slow, because of similar reasons as before. It started to affect the money. Although it is, technically, if you squint, a positive stereotype, as it's not portraying them as morally or inherently corrupt. Positive stereotypes are just as harmful to the communities they affect as negative ones, because stereotypes don't treat people as people. They aren't complex. They don't experience humanity. They're just stereotypes. The source or starting point of a stereotype causes the stereotype to carry the same ideal or prejudice as the original. This case being that Black characters are tokens for the white characters to collect and serve to only help white characters succeed. Hopefully that was educational for some of you. I do wonder, though, if the focus on these stereotypes, being so focused on seeing if a media depicts them and being so quick to dismiss characters in media that appear to use them without further examination is helpful either. Yes, it is important to be critical of the media we consume and to say something if there is something to be said. But if we never examine further than the surface level, if we don't ask further questions like how, what, why, and where, are we really making a positive difference at all? Additionally, if we only ever focus on the negatives, how a media might be portraying something wrong, and never mention the positives and what it might do right, then we only learn what not to do and never what to do. Now more than ever, people seem to struggle to form their own opinions and often take info from others at face value, overly trusting that this person did their research and is coming from an authentic place, leading to moral judgments of others based on something they did no research on themselves. It is concerning how many people seem to doubt their own ability to tell if something is objectively offensive or wrong. The over-reliance on someone else telling you how to feel. This is a dangerous place to be mentally, because it often leads to being more susceptible to bad faith arguments and false information, which is exactly how people become radicalized and indoctrinated into bigoted ideals. It's usually people who aren't the affected groups I see do this, though. They don't personally experience these things, and they don't actively affect them in their everyday life, so they take the first opinion they see, or the one that validates how they already think, and run with it, even if the person who first said it didn't know what they were talking about. Even if the first person who said it was in the same boat and didn't actually know what they were talking about, or, more nefariously, just lied. It makes me wonder how many characters that are actually great, well-rounded, and ultimately positive representation that have been dismissed or forgotten because one person wanted to take the moral pedestal and be the first to say something. just in case there was something to say. Like I said, I'm not making any claims for Luther. But I find that because of this trend of calling out, just in case there's something to say, leads to people not listening to the groups actually affected by what is being discussed. Performative activism helps nobody. In fact, it can often do more harm than good. We need to listen to the marginalized and amplify their voices, not try to be the first to speak for them. I do want to talk about Luther a little bit more, as just a character. What an understanding and kind person he is. I mean, it happened off camera, but Alice did open up to him about being an android and being afraid that if Kara knew, she wouldn't love her anymore. And then he tried to quell this child's fear by being the one to break the question. Something out of his own comfort zone as well. And in the case that Kara was upset, didn't accept Alice, he took care of her. His arc of starting as a very negative and cynical person, dismissive of any of Kara's positive topics in Pirate's Cove, and often being the one to be distrustful of others at first, Kara going along with it is up to the player, and becoming more positive and trusting because of his love for Kara and Alice. It's making him want to be hopeful, helping him grow and see that the world can be kind in the right places, and doing what we can to help them make it kinder. He doesn't see his own value within this lovely found family, because that was all he ever knew, giving of himself and never receiving in return. And the profound healing found in Alice and Kara's persistent reminders that he is valuable and important. Luther is a beautiful and interesting character, and it breaks my heart that he couldn't be fully realized. But that's just my opinion on Luther. I recognize the stereotype, I understand their harm, but I want to highlight the things I like about the character too, so that maybe by knowing both what they did wrong and what they did right, there could be positive change and more diverse and beautifully written characters in the future. I do want to hear other people's opinions though. On anything, I say. I want people to form their own opinions. I'm always willing to listen, especially if there's something I don't know and should learn. Delicious. Sorry. But look at that tray of food. We got what? 2 slices of bread, 2 bags of chips, a cookie, 2 plums, and a single donut? And a pack of fruit gummies? Girl dinner? I mean, Luther wasn't a household assistant android, so I guess he's doing his best. Where is the kitchen in this house anyway? Do you remember the Jerrys? I find that most people do. In me and my little brother's first replay, we only had the goal of having all the characters survive, since that was something we failed to do in our first playthrough. So, in Kara's route, an unavoidable event is encountering the Jerrys in Pirate's Cove. I don't know why, but me and my brother did not retain the memory of them at all. Like, complete memory wipe. I did make it to Pirate's Cove in our first playthrough, by the way. I died at the river, but for some reason, we did not remember them. And I don't mean, oh, we forgot about them our first playthrough years ago and then remembered our second playthrough on. No. We forgot in the middle of our second playthrough too. We completely forgot about them twice. You know when you save Luther from the soldiers in Battle for Detroit and the other android there is a Jerry and he thanks you for saving them? Yeah, me and my brother were like, sure, you're welcome. How do you know our name? We made it to the border and I sacrificed Jerry because I was like, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Then in our third playthrough, it finally clicked. I have forgotten about them at least once since, and I think if I didn't play the game every Wednesday, I would forget them again. I don't know why my mind can't retain the memory of Jerry. Maybe it's like a curse or something. Like an Eldritch horror. My mind doesn't want to retain the memory. Like I can't handle the knowledge. Speaking of Pirate's Cove, an interesting detail there is you can find YK400 model boxes in storage in one of the booths. Now, we don't know what a YK400 model is exactly, but given the fact that we know the Jerrys are EM400s, we know it's not their boxes. I know the leading theory is they're child androids because Alice is a YK500, and it would make sense for them to be in the same series. The implication here would be that people could rent or buy YK400s at the park. I could see parents wanting a playmate for their child for the day, or even a couple wanting to play family in the park. It would certainly match the marketing of the family line. A family you can participate in when you want to, and put away when you don't. My only thing about that is, these boxes look to be the same size as Kara. That would be a big child. I personally like the theory that we have, but I would like to see if anyone could possibly boundary break Kara in this chapter to compare her height to the boxes. Because if they are the same height, they couldn't possibly be for a child android. In that case, maybe it was like a caregiver or a nanny model people could rent to take care of their kids while they hung out in more adult areas of the park. Trust me, this could be a thing. I live in Florida. I know a lot of people who would happily pay money to ditch their kids at Disney and get drunk instead. I kind of want to talk about... Oh, I forgot Gambit was in there. Now, I kind of want to talk about the Jerrys apparently leaving the park. When we meet them, they say that they were left behind when the park closed, and that must have been a while ago given the state of the park. And Luther's line.
Looks like it's been abandoned for a while.
Even then, it seems that none of them ever left. Almost as if they're just waiting for humans to remember them and come back. I make an actual effort to not think too hard about the Jerrys because I usually just end up devastated. Maybe that's why I have trouble remembering them. What I think is nice with them too, though, is that their choice to leave the park feels really organic and well-motivated. Now, I don't personally feel like any character in a game feels inorganic. They're hard to understand. Their motives are often very clear to me, but I'm built different. I think the Jerrys have one of the best and more subtle storytellings to them. Their purpose was to entertain children, make them happy, and make sure they felt welcome and safe. It makes sense that they wouldn't leave. What if the children come back? They'll be so sad that we aren't there. But in meeting Kara, Alice, and Luther, and by cheering Alice up when they were told that the last few days have been difficult, you genuinely feel this new sense of purpose in them. They aren't just gonna wait for something to happen anymore. They're not just gonna sit hoping someone is gonna want them again, need them again. They're gonna go out and find purpose, find happiness. It's really fitting for the message of Kara's story, which I'll get into later. It's also the same plot as Jessie from Toy Story 2. You okay? For now, I want to talk a little bit more about the Jerrys. Specifically, I want to talk about them being a hive mind. I think the hive mind trope is used in media with robots and androids a lot, but I think the Jerrys are a really interesting subversion of how it's usually used. I feel like in most media, the hive mind is used as like a threat to the protagonist. It's used to make the enemy more drone-like and threatening, as being spotted by one would quickly inform masses of them. But with the Jerrys, it's actually used to benefit the protagonist. In Battle for Detroit, Kara captured, Kara is separated from Alice, and it becomes the player's goal to find her. Kara runs into one of the Jerrys, who she asks for help finding Alice, of which they connect to another Jerry and say that they have seen them, which informs Kara that Alice is in another part of the camp. I did initially think it was weird that they were a hive mind, but I hadn't seen this scene yet, and now I think it's a really interesting element to their characters, and I really enjoy the way they worked with it, even if it was for just one scene. I also realized that all the employees of an amusement park being a hive mind would actually be really good for safety, given how often children get lost in amusement parks or malls on their birthday with balloons. Anyway, here's a comment from the wiki page for the YK400 models. Oh wow, I didn't know Alice was an android. I think this adds up to the ending when Kara deactivates Alice's skin just before the entire group was executed. How did what? How didn't you know? Listen, yes, They could have just watched the ending of the chapter on YouTube before seeing Crossroads. But wouldn't the skin thing clue you in? Even a little bit? What did you think happened? What did you think that was? You saw that, and it still took you reading the wiki to finally catch on that she was an android. So I'm sorry, but I fully believe this person played the whole game themselves and just missed that she was an android. I'm kind of impressed. Speaking of the Jerry, that's my favorite transition. Do you know about the deleted ending to Pirates Cove? If you don't, there is an entire deleted ending to Pirates Cove that has an entire flowchart. Most of the assets are still there, just off map. And it's apparently possible to make it playable-ish, but it isn't accessible without modification. Dragonbane on YouTube uploaded an entire restoration of the missing half of this chapter, and it's so impressive. This took so much effort. A million thank yous to Dragonbane for even doing that. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's incredibly cool, and in my own head, it happens, and it's canon. But I like to theorize, so I'm going to talk about why I think it was removed. To me, it comes down to one very specific detail. I mentioned earlier that Alice cannot die at the hands of a human, except for Todd, until she is revealed to be an android. And it usually happens off screen, more implied. This is probably to keep the rating down because child death is actually really bad. So that's why I think it was removed. Alice can be straight up just shot in the back of the head by some random teenager with a gun in this cut ending. Which, if that's the first ending you get for Kara, you don't know she's an android. So for all you know, this guy just got away with killing a child with a shotgun. You're supposed to just continue the game after that. The fact that it is so complete, though, tells me that it was probably within playtesting, as it's possible playtesters got this ending and either complained about what it depicted or weren't making it past this chapter enough. There is only 2 ways to survive. I think they also just needed one good night for Alice.
I'll make the fire here. That way we won't be smoked out.
Great idea. Putting a fire in a fireplace? You're a genius. What would we do without you? Okay, I want you to guess how old Adam is, Rose's son. That's right, 25. I don't know why I thought he was like 16. I think it's the fact that he sounds like an anime character.
No! I won't back down this time.
And they're usually teenagers. Like, now that I think about it, I'm 25, and that's not that old, but it's just, I don't know, it surprised me. I thought he was a teenager. That being said, I brought up Alice's earlier concept art, so I'm bringing up Rose and Adams. They were white. Not a fan. I like this change. I don't have any theories about it, like why it was changed or anything. I just like it. It was a smart thing to do. It's kind of funny. Is it? I don't know. I really like Rose and Adam, but I don't think I would as much if they were white. Whatever that says. Do you want to hear a dialogue I didn't get into like 30 playthroughs? You have to ask a specific question first, and then this one will follow, but it won't show up otherwise. If you pick the option many deviants, the next option to pop up is dangerous, and it will only show up if you pick the first option.
Helping androids is dangerous. Why take the risk?
When the first one arrived last year, he was so lost and confused. We hid him here for a while, but all he wanted to do was cross the border. They shot him on the spot. So when the next android showed up, I just knew I had to help him.
In Dangerous, Rose talks about the first android to come to her house. She mentions it was 2 years ago. The android was incredibly lost, and no matter how much she tried to make life comfortable for him at her home, all he ever wanted was to cross the border. She tried to take him across just normal, and they shot him on sight. Which to her kind of solidified her resolve of wanting to help the androids, but shook her faith in how she was going to do that. It's the symbolism alarm again. Say it with me. I'm bringing up an animal that shows up next to a character, therefore I think it represents them in some way. Well, we'll get better at that, I hope. There are 2 drawings in Rose's house, but one is more blatant. It is a hippo. It's on the wall of the stairs. The camera kind of focuses on it for a moment. Hippos represent protection, emotional strength, and the ability to be calm even amidst chaos, which to me is what Rose is trying to do. She knows that these people need her and rely on her, so she needs to be strong for them, even when she feels that the ground is shaking underneath her feet. The other one is a wiener dog, which symbolizes connections and companionship, which could represent Kara finally finding someone who actually will help her and isn't tricking her. So, I know that Adam meant that they wouldn't be in danger from taking in deviant androids if his dad was still alive, because he simply wouldn't take them in. Which you don't know that, Adam. He's dead. We don't know what he would have done. Don't assume things about people. But I think an even funnier read is that something about Rose's husband's death caused deviancy to become a thing. Like his death was somehow the catalyst. Like how Kermit the Frog being born somehow caused 9/11. Speaking of Rose though, I never like losing Luther. His happiness is so important to me, maybe more important than Kara. So I don't get this ending in Midnight Train very often, but if you fail to lower suspicion with a cop, or send Luther and Alice to the kitchen to hide, or straight up forget to hide them and then not cover them with the curtain. Totally not something I did on my first playthrough, by the way. Luther will attack the cop to protect Kara, Alice, and the other androids. Adam has a pretty big reaction to this. Fair. He doesn't like it. But Rose, on the other hand, doesn't even mention it. She enters the house, maybe looks at the body for a moment, and then just goes, fuck, whatever. Do what you had to do. And just tells everyone to get ready. She was born in 1993, so she would have been 29 in 2020. What I'm saying is Rose is ACAB. Very early on, Kara was intended to lead the revolution in Marcus's place if he died, and she had already lost Alice. In my mind, if this were still included, it would be somewhere in Crossroads, because it's the first time she arrives in Jericho, but I don't know when they intended to implement it, given that the story was likely not in this order. Maybe Marcus was still in that fighting ring or whatever, I don't know. It's possible she was intended to get to Jericho sooner, similar to Luther initially being an optional companion. Maybe Alice was as well. Maybe Kara could have left her behind to save herself. This was very early on. There aren't even concepts of it. It was removed because it was too difficult to implement and it complicated the branching paths too much. My opinion? It's resoundingly neutral. I wouldn't have been upset, but I don't think it would have made sense. At least, not with the Kara that we know. I feel like she would be very overwhelmed with the idea of leading a revolution, and I don't think she would have been good at it. Besides that, I don't think North or Simon would be happy about that. They have been here from the start. They wouldn't just let some random woman walk in and start leading the revolution. I think that would only be possible if they knew her. I think Josh would be cool with it though. He's more of an advisor. Alright, this is really subjective. When me and my brother played, clearing all the nodes, for that we played Evil Kara. We decided to give this Kara white hair. And so, ever since, I cannot see Kara with white hair as not evil. It's kind of like when a character becomes a villain. They have that clear moment when you're like, oh, you settled into this. That's Kara with white hair for me. It defines how I play her from that point on. Anyway, yeah, it's incredibly subjective. It's just something I did. Maybe you'll adopt this mentality too? I don't know. It's up to you. It'd be funny if that became a thing though. I have a question. What do you think Kara's story is about? What do you think the lesson or thesis point of her story was? I see some people complain that her story is about being a mother and how being a mother is what will make you complete as a woman. I don't listen to these people because I feel like this perspective and opinion is very shallow. It feels like you played the game and the only thing you noted about Kara was that she was a woman and had a child. Kara's story isn't about being a mother or that motherhood is true happiness for women. Her story is about defining happiness for yourself, finding what it means for you to be happy, to be alive. There's obviously the talk with Luther, or Lucy, that is, to me, the clearest indicator of this meaning.
Forgetting who you are to become what someone needs you to be. Maybe that's what it means to be alive.
But I also want to bring up when you pick the lines that are sincere for Kara. In these moments, she displays uncertainty. The clearest example I can think of is in Pirate's Cove, when Alice asks, when looking at a picture of a happy nuclear family, do you think we'll be happy like them someday? Alice referring to them being happy. And if you pick sincere as your response, Kara replies,
I don't know how to be like them, Alice. I've never been a part of a family.
Reflecting that Kara sees the whole picture, mother, father, children, as the question. Will we be like them instead of will we be happy like them? And this is repeated a couple of different places in that she tries to define what life should look like based on what everyone else's life is. A normal human life. Cut from her optimistic response in the same scene. Once we cross the border, we can start over. You can go to school. Maybe I'll find a job. We'll be like them. Like everyone else. And the last part, cut from the line. We'll be happy too. Meaning that for Kara, happiness is defined by being like everyone else. Because of course, they seem happy. To be happy, you have to fit into a specific mold and be like everyone else. The expectations of what life should look like and her learning that she can't fit that expectation. And if she tried, it wouldn't make her happy is her lesson. That she is different. And that the way happiness is defined for her is different too. And that's not a bad thing. It's about defining her own happiness because she wanted to be a mother. The realization that Alice wasn't human almost shattered that for her because the only depiction of motherhood she'd ever seen was with a human child. She literally blocked herself from the truth in order to continue this ideal, to chase this artificial happiness. It's the realization that she can still be a mother even if it's not in the way that's conventional or expected. Still have a family and be bonded to people who she cares about and that make her happy without it having to be defined the same way as everyone else. Kara's story is not telling you that if you are a woman, you should want to be a mother because that is the only happiness a woman can find. Kara's story is telling you that no matter how you define happiness, you deserve it. And that fighting for your happiness is worth it, no matter what. To finish Kara's sincere response in Pirate's Cove.
I don't know how to be like them, Alice. I've never been a part of a family. But maybe we can be our own family. Be happy in our own way.
That was lovely. Would you like to hear something awful? I already brought up that Alice was mixed race in her initial design. That started to make me think, what was the initial intention with Alice? Like, from the start. What fucked up freaky shit did David Cage think of in that stupid bald head of his? So given my knowledge of his previous work, I propose Alice. David Cage's version. So, androids are clearly an allegory, and Alice was mixed, an early concept. And David Cage really loves magical world-saving children. What do you think a child could do to unite androids and humans during the midst of a war? I think, very early on, I hate that I'm going to say this, Alice was a hybrid. That she was human and android. And I don't mean a human girl with android parts to like keep her alive, because that would make her a cyborg. I said hybrid. I mean like an android mother and a human father. It's very unlikely this was the idea. But doesn't it sound like something David Cage would do? With this in your mind though, are you still angry that the reveal was Alice being an android? My point is, it could have been worse. Now that I put that horrible image in your mind, the bus depot is the funniest segment in the game. That includes the checkpoint just before it. 2 sitcom-style gags happen in these scenes that were not intended to be funny. Clearly, the first one, at the checkpoint, after you make it through, the soldier asks you to wait, in which case you get the option twice. Luther really wants you to shoot this guy to either see what the guy has to say or shoot him. If you shoot him, Alice walks to the body, picks up her glove, which was in his hand, and she says, "He just wanted to give me back this." But instead of saying anything, her reacting in a way that would, I don't know, make sense. Luther and Kara give each other what is basically the sitcom, well, that's a problem.
Hey, wait a minute.
He knows, Kara. They're gonna kill us.
Don't do anything, Luther. You hear me?
They're gonna shoot. They're gonna kill Alice.
Do it.
He just wanted to give me back this.
The other one, to get on the bus, you need tickets. There's a woman with a baby that Alice approaches. Then the husband comes in, and when they leave, the husband asks if she has the tickets. She confirms they are in the bag. I initially thought this was going to spur a, oh, we have to sneak the tickets out of the bag. Decisions. Quick time event. But instead the tickets fall out of the bag right as she says the word.
You got the tickets, right?
Yes, honey, in my bag.
Great. Let's go then.
She put them in the pocket that things fall out of, I guess. For plot convenience. And listen, there's no time limit for how long you can wait to pick up the tickets. Meaning, you could just stand there with Kara, Alice, and Luther, just staring at the fucking tickets on the ground. I feel like the depot almost wasn't supposed to happen. I think they realized that Kara's battle for Detroit, leaving Detroit, was too short. That something was missing and that they didn't have a transition for crossing the river, so they added the depot and then forgot to write anything for it, so the actors improv'd. I think it's funny. Another thing to note about Battle for Detroit, Kara leaving Detroit, Alice really just hones in on small Victorian orphan energy. She has so many moments where she just looks up at the camera and just goes, "Thank you. Thanks." It's like, it's so funny. It's so goofy. And then she fucking falls down. That one's funny. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard of this site before. It's called tvtropes.org. It lists the tropes a media might have, while also citing proof for the tropes by pointing to moments in the media that support it. I don't know who wrote some of these, but I don't think they've ever seen a child before. In one of the tropes, I can't remember which one, it says that this is a toddler. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a toddler before, but that's not one. That's a full-on baby. Like a couple months old at most. They also said Alice was 6. First of all, that's not a 6-year-old. That's not what a 6-year-old looks like. Second of all, the game literally says she's 9. Twice. Another thing this page did was try and guilt me for taking the tickets in Battle for Detroit. If Kara takes the tickets, it would be her and the player's fault if the couple and their toddler died from exposure to the cold. Bitch, no it wouldn't. If they stay there after that last bus leaves until all 3 of them die of hypothermia, that's their own damn fault. The soldiers would likely escort them home anyway, since they have a child. Now, it would be my fault if they died in an explosion, but that's not what you said. And it would be Kara's fault. She didn't know I was gonna do that. Also, I can't believe they need a ticket for a baby. The purpose of tickets is they represent a seat. The baby's gonna be in her lap. Staying on the train, TV tropes, there was something that they said that really annoyed me. I agreed with the trope, but not the example. The trope in question is the artistic license the game takes with geography. One of the examples it uses, though, is that Kara and Alice take multiple days to make it to Canada, despite starting the story near downtown Detroit, which would be not even an hour drive. Which would make sense as an example if Kara's first thought upon becoming deviant was to get to Canada. Kara doesn't get the idea of going to Canada until Zlatko mentions it, whose house is confirmed to be on the outskirts of Detroit. Not to mention, after she decides to go to Canada, her goal is to find someone to help her get there, not to go to Canada alone. So I got curious and decided to try and map out her entire journey because of one trope on tvtropes.com. Yeah. So, we know for a fact where she starts her journey. If she stays in the motel in Fugitives, the next morning in On the Run, a news broadcast on the TV will state that Todd's house was in Corktown, Detroit. Yes, this is very close to the border. But remember, she isn't trying to get to Canada yet. She doesn't have a destination in mind yet. And in Stormy Night, the bus was a convenient and quick escape. In Fugitives, she and Alice just stay on the bus until they're forced off at the last stop in Ravendale, which we learn is where they end up in Waiting for Hank from Chris. She is now further from the border, but it's still not her goal to get there. So that's not really important. Interesting about the Ravendale location, there is a highway that passes right by Ravendale, and in a magazine found in Jericho titled Android on the Run, it states, "Runaway machine causes panic in Camden. Camden Avenue is a real street in Ravendale." The consistency and attention to detail here is very strange, and you'll see why later. In Fugitives, she gets the location of Zlatko's from another android in which she says, "But that's on the other side of town. We need a place for tonight." And from a news broadcast in Pirates Cove, if you burn down the Zlatko estate, Zlatko's house is on the outskirts of the city, which, of course, we can assume is Detroit, as the broadcast is from the local station. Now, with this information, we can assume Kara had to travel west or north to the outskirts of Detroit, presumably just within city limits. Now, this is where things get foggy. So we don't know what direction she goes, and we stop getting actual locations at this point. All we know is she's on the outskirts of Detroit, and somewhere pretty far from Ravendale. As even when she took a train, it took her 8 hours to get there. Presumably, she walked for a good chunk of those hours. I think people also forget she didn't have a car. In fact, the train only becomes her goal when she finds out that the police are looking for them in the area, or she stays in the parking lot. She could be using it as a means to just get out of the area quickly, similar to the bus at Todd's house. That, or Slatko's house, actually exists in some dimensional rift that caused the time anomaly. Or maybe she went to the water park. It is right across the highway. Now, from Zlatko's, she does have a car, and it seems they have been driving for about 5 hours before the car broke down, with an hour left in the journey. Now, a 6-hour car ride would imply she is once again traveling to the opposite side of the city, possibly outside of the city. Oh my god! Now, given that Rose is a reference to the Underground Railroad, it could be safe to assume that she is outside of Detroit, as the only site of the railroad listed on National Park Service in Detroit is a church. That's not the only one listed in Michigan, though, as Dr. Nathan Thomas's house is also listed in Schoolcraft, Michigan, which I think could be a safe bet, given there is a lot of farmland there, from what I can see, and the architecture of the houses look pretty similar to Rose's and the houses around hers. Now, this would also only be a 2-hour drive from Detroit. So 6 is still a lot, but we don't know when they actually started driving to Rose's, as they spent about 30 to 45 minutes with Zlatko, and then prepared a bag and changed clothes before leaving. It is also snowing pretty heavily, record lows in the temps according to the news, so they could be driving slower. Luther confirms that they are when Kara talks about the snow, saying it's slowing us down. Not to mention, it's likely they're avoiding highways, as Luther says they need to avoid being seen. Avoiding highways already turns a 2-hour drive into a 3.5-hour drive, and with dangerous road conditions, this could easily be a much longer drive than even that. So if we take an hour and a half off from spending time with Zlatko and preparing to leave the house, that leaves us with 4.5 hours. That is completely reasonable in terms of time. Rose being outside of Detroit would also explain Pirates Cove to me, as Detroit is incredibly dense. I don't know where they'd fit an amusement park of its size there. Now they arrive at Rose's at 5 p.m., which could make sense given we don't know how long they stayed at the park after we left them, and they walked the rest of the way after making about a little over halfway there. When Rose comes back after leaving to... I don't really know where she went or what she did in, 15 minutes? I think they just needed Rose out of the house. Anyway, she says, "Get yourselves ready. We leave tonight." You don't see Kara again until Crossroads at 9 p.m. the next day. I don't think they left that night. This would objectively only be a 3-hour drive, even with avoiding highways. It wouldn't take them an entire day. Like, Capitol Park, Meet Kamsky, Freedom March, and Last Chance Connor all happen in between these 2 chapters. We don't see Kara for an entire day and some. The times would make sense if they did leave that night, though. Making this all the stranger to me. Was this an oversight? Maybe Rose was being hyperbolic, or maybe she thought they'd be able to get ready faster. She thought they'd leave that night, but then she realized that she'd forgotten to actually wash Alice's clothes like she said she would. She just put them on the fireplace instead of, I don't know, putting them in the washer and dryer that she owns. Sure, that probably would have disturbed the guy in there grieving, but putting her clothes on the fireplace isn't doing shit. She can't go in her pajamas. She's cold enough as it is. And then maybe they just got snowed in. Wow. That scenario was worse if Luther and the cop died. Anyway, they intend to get to a bus depot that will drive them to the border from Jericho. And then Jericho explodes. She kind of puts a damper on that plan. Night of the Soul takes place on the 10th at 7 p.m., but it's kind of implied that they secured the church as a safe haven sometime around 4 or 5 p.m., since I don't think Marcus would leave and visit Carl's grave if his people weren't secure somewhere. Then Bound for Detroit starts at almost 11 p.m. on the 11th, so they presumably rested at the church for a while. Now, from Ferndale to Windsor, Ontario, it is a pretty short drive of only 20 minutes. And the game is pretty accurate with this, given that Kara and Co. arrive at the bus depot at 11:02, assuming they make it on time. and they arrive at border control at 11:30. But that's 30 minutes. There are a lot of people trying to leave Detroit right now. A 10-minute traffic delay makes sense. In fact, it should be longer. So that is my best attempt at mapping the route Kara took. When she starts actually going towards Canada, it's pretty quick, because, yeah. But it's important to remember that getting to the Canadian border isn't her goal until Crossroads. And in that case, she gets interrupted quite a bit. Now, Fernandale is landlocked. And you wouldn't be able to see the Ambassador's Bridge from anywhere in Fernandale, let alone find a fucking freighter ship. So that's hilarious. To be fair, we don't know what's gonna happen in 2038. Maybe they do that. Maybe they put a whole fucking river in Fernandale. Kara has a lot of endings. I'm pretty sure she has the most. And a lot of them are very sad. But by far, to me, the saddest ending is dying while crossing the river. Especially if Alice gets injured and doesn't wake up. And you have to choose, you have the choice to go on without her. What Kara was living for, or to die with her, just outside of the grasps of freedom. It's devastating, because out of all of the endings, it's the one that feels the most like you were so close. All of the lines and quotes from crossing the river are so heart-wrenching. Just reading them makes me want to cry. Kara carrying Alice off the boat as she staggers to land is just... And if Alice shuts down, being forced to pick between dying with her, being able to continue to experience freedom without her, or to keep living, being forced to find a new purpose after what you were fighting for was forced out of your hands. The feelings of that choice are so heavy. The composition of these scenes are gorgeous too. The man in that VR knew what he was doing. That being said, can I talk about the border bathroom scene? I'm going to talk about the border bathroom scene. Once Kara reaches the border, she finds out that they are doing temperature checks, meaning that they won't make it through. Kara spots Rose, and they have to look for a private place to talk. The bathroom. Fuck this guy.
Where the hell do you think you're going?
The bathroom, you fucking asshole. What the fuck? We give these guys guns? Once in the bathroom, Kara approaches the sink, staring at her reflection as her eyes start to water, mirroring moments earlier in the game when Kara and the other player characters could look at themselves in the mirror. Her growth and the journey she's been through is clear in her appearance now. She's been changed. She'll never be able to go back to who she was before, and I don't think she'd want to. I know. She cries. She cries as she looks at herself, so close to freedom, but still so far. You can feel how hard she's trying to keep herself together this entire time. This is the first and only time we see Kara break down like this. The weight of the world may not be on Kara's shoulders, but the weight of her world is. And as if on cue, Alice slowly comes up to Kara and hugs her, comforting her in the ways that Kara comforted Alice. I'm not going to cry. This moment is so beautiful. The fact that the scene is completely silent too is incredible. Valerie Curry is just remarkable in this chapter, in the entire game, actually. Valerie, you dropped this. When Rose finally enters the bathroom, she and Kara hug. Rose talks about seeing the raid on TV and being glad to see them alive. The player can ask her several questions. Brother has Kara mention going to Rose's brothers once they cross the border. Control has Kara mention the temperature check, panicking for a moment before being calmed by Rose. Would you call that calming? Alice has Kara ask Rose to take Alice if anything happens to her. Departure has Kara ask why Rose is leaving Detroit. Revolution has Kara ask about Marcus. Rose's answers change depending on what the player chose for Marcus in Night of the Soul. Choosing all of the answers leads to the goodbye option, but you can choose to say goodbye at any point after you've asked at least one question. Rose then hugs both Kara and Alice. Clearly, the three aren't saying it, but they are aware that this could be their final goodbye. Rose's whimper as she hugs Alice gets me every time. This little girl shouldn't be going through this. This little girl shouldn't know fear like this. No one should. Rose leaves the bathroom first, leaving Kara and Alice alone. This is my favorite scene in maybe the entire game. There isn't a single flaw. It's perfect. I think Detroit Become Human's art is strongest in its silence. Moments where there are no words, but you know exactly what is being felt. Moments that exercise your empathy and transcend language. A simple screenshot of humanity. Without saying a word, anyone can understand what they are feeling. And it's only helped by the score. I already mentioned Kara climbing out of the boat with Alice, but another great scene is Kara and Alice running to the bus stop in Stormy Night. The music gives me chills. I fight Todd through the entire house just so I can get the longer run through the alleyway. Kara's distraught face as reality starts sinking in of what happened, and then Alice breaking it by grabbing her hand. It's a fucking masterpiece, I tells ya. Anyway, content warning. I'm going to bring up genocide and the Holocaust. I'm gonna keep the sad vibes going. I'm not going to be overly detailed about it, but I'm going to mention it because it is kind of an unavoidable topic given that the game's about systemic oppression and genocide. I hope that's not news to you. Timestamp, if you don't want to hear any of that right now, I completely understand. So, there is a criticism to the depiction of the android camps. They make a lot of people uncomfortable, and you're completely valid if it does, because it's supposed to. I mean, they are supposed to remind you of the Holocaust. That's the purpose of them. A reporter with President Warren says this, actually. So it making your stomach hurt is the correct response. I know a lot of people say they shouldn't have depicted the inside of the camps, which I understand, but I disagree with. But some people say they shouldn't have had the camps at all, which I definitely don't agree with. In my opinion, that would be more offensive. For a game about systemic oppression and genocide of a people to skirt around or outright omit the realities of what that entails, what that would look like, what that would feel like, especially since we are seeing from the perspective of the oppressed, would feel disingenuous and insulting. These chapters make me uncomfortable, no matter how many times I play them. I'm always on edge during them. But I also understand that that's the point of them. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Some things should make you uncomfortable, and Detroit Become Human makes it explicitly clear what side you are meant to be on. I would understand the upset if the depiction was similar to something like Attack on Titan, because Attack on Titan does not make it clear what side we are meant to be on. We are supposed to empathize with humanity for killing people, but we are also supposed to empathize with the people humanity is killing, treating the subject as subjective. Pretty much saying that we should kill some people, that it's all right to kill the right people. It skirts the line in a way that almost endorses genocide. Detroit Become Human never dances this line. There isn't a single death of any android that is treated as the right thing to do. And there are several moments of characters on the opposing side questioning if they are on the right side. Also, there are characters who aren't on the android side, and it is made explicitly clear that they are wrong and you should not idolize them or mimic them. Additionally, none of the characters on the android side question if they are on the right side. Depending on your choices as the player, they may question the methods, but never the movement. So I understand the upset of something like this being depicted, but I feel like the way it's depicted should be taken into account. And the context and subtext here isn't this cool? It's, this is the terrible, ugly reality of what genocide means. This is what that looks like. You have the privilege to turn away. The affected can't. It comes down to depiction not equaling endorsement. When you see something like this depicted, ask yourself, how is this being depicted? Why is this being depicted? And what does the media want me to take away from the way this is depicted? And in Detroit Become Human's context, it's clear that the takeaway is, this is wrong. These are people, human beings, being dehumanized and treated as lesser to justify killing them. that the system will put people where they want them, and the moment these people demand better from the system, they find any reason to kill them. And this isn't an idea of the past. Genocides are still are happening right now. 1 second. There's a reason you're only taught one version of genocide, and it's so you don't recognize that it's still happening today. Genocide doesn't look like soldiers shooting people in the streets. Genocide isn't blatant, at least not to the unaffected. It is quiet, it is subtle, and it is unassuming. Until it isn't. But by then, they will have conditioned you to not care. To agree with the senseless and inhumane killing of people. They don't want you to know what they're doing from the start, because if you did, you'd be against it. They'll sugarcoat their words, their intentions, justify however they can, and when it becomes unavoidably loud, when they can no longer mask the putrid smell, they make sure that you know what side they want you on. They use indoctrination and manipulative methods in the news, media, and with politicians to control the narrative and dictate who is right. Something also depicted in the game. So I think it's important that Detroit Become Human does use the word genocide and refuses to act like it doesn't know what that means. It's not always loud. It's silent, and often it's happening right in front of you. And once you know, it's up to you to decide to ignore it. Once you know it is there, you decide at that moment if it is ignorance or malice. Acknowledge the similarities, because they are there. You are right to acknowledge them, to notice and recognize them. But them being there is not an inherent problem. We should know what genocide looks like. We should know what genocide means. We should be able to recognize genocide when it is happening, because knowing what genocide means and what it looks like through an objective lens gives us the power to stand against it. Do not fall prey to propaganda. Remember, we are not free until we are all free. Timestamp. Okay, serious time over. I'm sorry. Hard to transition from that, but I will try. Kara is actually very good at self-defense. I think it's actually really cool that in the first QTE fight you have as Kara, it is very defensive, because she's still in that, like, naivety, and that she knows she doesn't want to be assaulted, but she can't tell when an encounter will go sour. Like, this is the only thing she can do, is defend herself when and if it happens. Where later on, specifically in the camps and in Jericho, during Crossroads, she is the offensive. Because she is no longer naive to the fact that these people want her and her family dead. She's not just going to stand by and let that happen. She's not going to let them be the first to move. This also goes into another point I have. Kara wasn't made to fight. She was made to wash dishes, cook food, do laundry, take care of children, etc., etc. Made in quotes. She wasn't made to be anything. She was forced to be these things. But people have this thing where they go, androids would need to download new information to do stuff outside of their program. And I find that funny, because the game makes it clear that that's not true so many times. I find it goofy that people will have the characters just straight up sit there and go, I don't know how. I will download the program from the internet. If they were connected to the internet, they could be found. Besides that, they aren't connected to the internet. They're connected to CyberLife servers that store the information that they can access. And furthermore, a deviant android wouldn't be able to access the servers because, again, they'd be tracked if they did. Kara says that she has 9,000 children's stories in memory. And she isn't referring to the internet, she's referring to her own memory. Like your computer being pre-packaged with pictures of a dog. I think these are called desktop backgrounds. Also, Kara would know how border control works in this universe if she could just connect to the internet. That is information that CyberLife would deem unimportant for a household assistant to know, since they can't bring androids into Canada. Good boy. You went under. That's a smart boy. Smart boy, Goosey. Good boy. And Simon wouldn't get shot so many times if he was connected to the internet. You would have downloaded a bullet dodging program. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay, I need to talk about Kara, Alice, and Luther again. Nothing in particular, I just want to gush about how much I love them. I love the way they love each other, the way they are a family in a way that almost looks conventional from the outside, but is entirely unconventional. I'm a fucking bitch for found family. It's one of my favorite things, and I really love finding purpose in other people and companionship in a way that is platonic. It's just so beautiful. I love that Kara and Luther's relationship is platonic, but they both clearly agree that they're gonna raise Alice together. That is so sweet. It's like a QPR. More platonic life partners, please. They mean so much to me, and I would kill for them. Okay. It is possible to abandon Alice as Kara in the camps and have Alice survive. And in the ending with Kara, when she abandons Alice in the camps, she stays in Detroit. We know this because of the secret ending, and presumably, so does Alice. I don't know where else she would go. So, that would be an awkward reunion. Oh my god. Oh! Hi! Alice, you survived. Yeah, I did. That's great! So happy to see it. Yeah, no thanks to you. Yeah, bitch, you abandoned me. I'm sorry. Fuck you. Now, if you don't mind, my 4 platonic parents are here to pick me up for soccer practice. This is sort of unrelated, but when me and my brother abandoned Alice on Jericho for the first time, we also killed Luther and played as a machine Connor, and we both felt terrible for what we did to Alice. So we came up with this funny scenario where Connor's like looking for Marcus to kill him, but he finds Alice and he's like appalled that she was abandoned. She abandoned you? Did she send you across the highway for fun too? And like him showing up in the room with the detonator, like, my mission is to neutralize you, and I always accomplish my mission. And Marcus is like, and my mission is that a child? Why do you have a child with you? What? What was I supposed to do? Just leave her? Just leave her here? Stop looking at her! Wait. Take my hand. We're holding hands now. Go on a journey with me. Close your eyes. You are Alice. Just 2 weeks ago, your dad ripped your mom apart limb from limb. And now, she's back. But she doesn't remember you. Sucks. Your dad is his typical abusive self, but tonight, it gets a little different. He hits you. You run upstairs, and while you're hiding in your room, your mom comes in, and she's like, hey, I want to talk to your dad. She leaves, and you hear her say 2 words, and then he hits her. Okay, thanks, Mom. Your dad comes in. Mom's down for the count. But look, it's her mom. She's like, hey, I'm going to kill your dad. Look at this gun I found. Your dad rips the gun out of her hands and starts fighting her, and she's losing. Like bad. So you, little 9-year-old you, grab the gun and shoot your dad. Oh no! You and your mom run away. You don't have anywhere to stay. You don't have any money. It's raining and you're cold. Your mom's like, the best we can do is this car that I let a draft in. And you're like, okay, I guess. But our relationship is going down because of this. The next day, the police are already onto you guys. Your mom's like, shit, we gotta get out of here. There's a train station. That's where we'll go. Oh no, you're spotted on your way there. You and your mom run and turn down an alleyway, jump a fence, and you cross the highway, but what? There's a guy in a suit chasing you. Who is he? Oh, he got hit by a truck. But you're okay. So you and your mom get on the train. It takes you all day to get to the place your mom heard of. She's really bad with directions. You go in, you get bad vibes, but your mom's like, hey, he said he'd help us, and let's trust him. And you're like, I'm 9. She gets in the machine, and they start wiping her memory, and then they take you and lock you in a closet and say that they're going to run terrible experiments on you. You're in here for 9 fucking minutes thinking, so fucking right. I'm screwed right now. I'm gonna fucking die here. And your mom comes in, and you're like, Phil, let's get the fuck out of here. So you run out of there, and this guy you got the ick from is chasing you with a shotgun. You're running through the garden, and you trip. You're like, fuck, we're done for. Thankfully, the other guy, not in a suit, who was there, realizes this is so fucked up and shoots the it guy. Awesome. Cool. You guys get in a car, and it seems like it's all uphill from here. What could go wrong? The car breaks down. You're like, it's -degrees outside. I'm gonna die out here. Your mom's like, no. We're gonna rest, and we're gonna do it in this abandoned amusement park. So you spend a couple minutes trying to find a place to spend the night, and you do! For the first time in 2 days. It seems everything is gonna be okay. You're finally gonna get a decent nap. And then, I don't know, a boy band starts banging on the windows and doors and shatter the glass. Why do you do this to yourself? Why do you bother hoping? They aren't evil. They're harmless. They actually were just curious who was in here. Doesn't change that they let a draft in. And the fire's out. Really feeling like a mobile ad in here. Whatever, at least you got to ride the carousel. That's one highlight. So you start walking in the morning again. It's still cold, but at least it's morning. And you arrive at this woman's house, and she's really kind, and she helps you and your mom's friend, and it seems like, wow, things are gonna be okay. You have a fever, and everyone forces you to rest and eat spaghetti for the 50th time in 3 days. You don't even need to eat, but no one will listen to you. You can't sleep, so you go downstairs. Some woman dies in the other room. You're 9. The woman that helped you leaves, and you're left there with your mom's friend, and the woman's frankly kind of rude son. And someone knocks on the door. It's a cop. Fuck. Your mom's running around hiding evidence, but she forgets to tell you and her friend to hide, so you both run into the kitchen. And she doesn't move the curtain to cover you guys. You're 9. He's big. Neither of you can move a curtain. That'd be ridiculous. She's terrible at lying. This cop is already so sus of you guys. He catches you and your mom's big friend, and your mom's big friend gets shot trying to protect you. No! You're 9. You kind of have to just accept this because there's no time to grieve. We gotta go. Get out of here. You make it to Jericho. Your mom leaves for a little bit while you warm up, and she comes back, and she's like really distant all of a sudden, and you're like, what happened? And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. And you're like, okay. Is this ship shaky? Suddenly there are soldiers shooting people. You and your mom are running as people drop dead around you. But you're not running fast enough, and you get caught by one of the soldiers. You're in this truck for a while with all these other people, and when you get out, the soldiers, they're pointing guns at you. It's so scary here. A guy tries to run and gets shot, and your mom offers to put the body in the dump. And you're like, Mom, where are you going? Now you're in here alone. It is so scary. I mean, I guess there were a couple of those guys from that boy band, but they're not great for conversation. They really just like talking about themselves. You're about to die. You're like, I'm 9 years old. This week sucked. And then people start cheering. That guy, not in a suit, the leader of Jericho. He freed the camps. Everything is gonna be okay. And you're standing in the crowd. He gives you a front row seat. You're listening to his speech, and you're like, yeah. From this day forward, things are gonna be okay. You look to your left. Holy shit. Is that the guy in the suit that got hit by a truck? And is that a gun? You watch this guy in a suit who just got hit by a truck assassinate the leader of the revolution. And you're like, I'm 9 years old. Okay, this is technically impossible because there's one contradiction. That can't work. You can only save Kara and or Alice from the camps as Marcus through a violent assault, and if you do that, a machine Connor will fight just before the liberation of the camp. The only way to have Connor appear in the crowd with the gun is through a peaceful demonstration, in which Alice dies. So fuck, which is worse? She could actually watch a deviant Connor shoot Marcus in the back of the head, but it's funnier if he's next to her. Yes? I'm recording. Okay. What was I saying? Hello? I said I'm... What the fuck? Hi. So everything you just watched was filmed almost 2 years ago now. I started the script for this video in 2023, and then I filmed it in January of 2024. So, that is actually 2 years ago. Yeah, it's almost 2 years ago that I filmed all of that. And, I didn't intend for this video to take that long. I started the scripting process and I started filming it on the cusp of a lot of things. At the time of filming, I actually wasn't even sure what was going to happen. I was living in pleasant ignorance. So, in between the filming of that video and now, me and my family moved across the country, not because we wanted to see something new, not because we just needed a new environment, but because we were on the threat of homelessness. And because of the kindness of a family member I've never even met outside of when I was an infant. We aren't. So I'm actually 5 hours away from Detroit now, which is kind of weird to think about. I was at one time over 20 hours away. That's when I started filming this, that's where I was. So it's I guess maybe over the next 2 years I'll be in Detroit. That if that's the track record. But when we got here, it wasn't it wasn't perfect. Things weren't really ready for us, so a lot of our first year here was spent adjusting. So when we got here, two of our cats went missing, and they were both purely indoor cats. They'd never been outside. One was missing for 3 months with no sight of him. We were pretty certain he was gone, but we found them, and then we found a rescue kitten dumped on the side of the road. We took him in. My brother went through a lot. I was dealing with a lot of isolation and loneliness because I spent most of my life in a city, and now I'm in a small rural town in the middle of nowhere. So it was a lot of adjustment for my entire family. So what I'm saying is, after filming that, I went through what I could only describe as the worst year of my life. And once 2024 ended and we were coming into 2025, I thought, only up from here. Let's make this year better. And then I had what I can only describe as the worst year of my life. Within the same week, my 2 childhood dogs passed away. A couple months later, my first cat passed away. One of my other cats, who I raised from birth, was diagnosed with heart failure, and now he's on medication for the rest of his life. And the rescue kitten I mentioned passed away due to complications with epilepsy. And then one of our colony cats passed away, so it was pretty rough. It was a rough year, but it's December. Once again, I'm at the same spot I was last year. And in 2 years of reflecting on this video, on this series I plan to make, I decided I need to do this. I need to do the things that make me happy again. I realized very early on when making this, I was waiting for perfect timing. And if these past 2 years have taught me anything, it's that perfect timing isn't what you think it is. It doesn't look like the stars aligning. It is something happening just because you were right there. And sometimes it is you had to do something for that perfect timing to come. So I do have 3 more parts of this series I plan to make. Hopefully they will not take nearly as long. I do have plans and ideas on how I can streamline the editing process, because that is the part that takes me the longest. I guess I have a lot to say. No, because it's pictures and I don't know. Editing just takes me a long time. I'm not really sure why. It's just the longest part of the process for me. But I did want to talk about Kara's story again, because in these 2 years, its definition has changed for me. I did mention in the old footage that her story means defining happiness for yourself, and I still believe that your happiness doesn't have to look like everybody else's, but there's a message in it I think I missed then because I didn't know it then.
that her story is about finding what makes you happy despite everything. The world is harsh sometimes. It can be cruel. And it may feel like you will never stand up again. But despite that pain, despite that struggle, you find a reason to stand up again. Those moments of happiness that make you want to live. Even though it hurt, without it, you would have missed so much happiness. It was awful losing our home, but if that never happened, we never would have found Ranger and brought him home. If I hadn't moved, I never would have met one of my best friends in person for the first time. I never would have learned how to do a back handspring. I never would have learned how much I love. That despite losing so much, I'm going to love again. And I want to love again. That it was painful, but despite that, I would do it again and again, a million times, if it meant I got to love you. Kara's story is about being happy anyway, loving anyway, promising forever, because forever, however long that may be, is all we have. Earlier in the video, I said I first played the game in 2019 and then rediscovered it in 2022. But I still play it, obviously. But I cry more now when I play it. It hits me deeper now than it did before, and I think because just like the characters in this beautiful little story, I have become something, and I like what I've become. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you again very soon. I'm crying like a little bitch. Ah!
We're free, Alice. We're free. Alice? Wake up. Wake up. Alice!
Are we there?
Yes. We made it.
I love you, Cora.
I love you too. I love you too.
I'm sorry about that. Okay.
I love you. Still stubbornly insisting someone else is at fault, whilst using Alice as a scapegoat. Scapegoat? It's a scapegoat. My point is, Car broke a huge fucking hole into the car, letting in a giraffe. A giraffe?